Hi, happy Sunday. Sunday is Literary Archaeology Day here on Far From Eden. Glad to have you guys here. Like I said last week, we have 3 fairy tales today because the first 2 are very, very short and we are not skipping one. There is too much truth in here to uncover. We are digging through, we are archaeologists digging through these fairy tales, which we've been taught that fairy tales are just stories, just silly stories for children, just entertainment, bedtime stories, really nothing. No. These Grimm brothers, this is all of them as published in 1812 and 1815. These are stories filled with truth, filled with lessons to teach children so that they would carry them into adulthood and maintain society, understanding what women are all about, understanding what men are all about, understanding everybody's duties, understanding the importance of good character, all of those things. It's like, who knew that in the real Cinderella, that Cinderella was pious. She was of good character. That's why the prince chose her. It wasn't just because she was beautiful. She was beautiful, but guess what? In the old story, in the original, her stepsisters were also beautiful, but they were nasty in their character. Little girls in the modern age grow up thinking, well, you just have to be beautiful and put on a show of femininity. You just have to go and act feminine, like the stepsisters did at the ball. But the prince clearly could see through that and realize, no. And especially when he realized that they were trying to, hide Cinderella from him and lie about fitting in the glass slipper by cutting off part of their foot. They were stricken blind because consequences. Anyway, we don't hear any of that. We get told that the prince didn't pick the stepsisters because they were ugly in their features. They were also, not nice people, but that's secondary, right? So if you wonder why women are like with all the fake up and the behavior and get into your feminine and all that baloney, it's because that's what they think it's all about. Fairy tales are powerful and they shape us. You guys know that you think about, oh, that's the Disney thing. That's the Disney thing. Disney is a vehicle. They brought fairy tales to the screen. They redefined what these fairy tales were. Well, we're getting down to the bottom of it. Okay, so the first short one is The Stolen Pennies. One day, a father was sitting at the table with his wife and children and a good friend who was visiting him, and they were having their noonday meal. As they were sitting there, the clock struck 12, and the visitor saw the door open and a pale child dressed in snow-white clothes entered. Ooh. He didn't look around or say anything, but went silently into the next room. Shortly thereafter, he returned and went away just as quietly as he had entered. It's a little creepy. On the second and third day, the child came again. Finally, the visitor asked the father who the beautiful child was that entered the room every day at noon. The father answered that he knew nothing about him. He hadn't seen anything. Whoa. Oh my goodness. The next day, as the clock struck noon, the child entered again, and the visitor pointed the child out to the father, but he didn't see the boy. Neither did the mother nor the children. The visitor stood up, went to the door, opened it a little, and looked inside. There he saw the pale child sitting on the floor, digging and rummaging in the cracks of the boards. However, as soon as the child noticed the visitor, he disappeared. Now the visitor told the family what he had seen and gave an exact description of the boy. The mother was then able to recognize the child and said, "Alas, it's my own dear child who died 4 weeks ago." Oh. Then they ripped up the boards of the floor and found 2 pennies that the boy had received from his mother at one time to give to a poor man. But the child had thought, "You can buy yourself a biscuit for that." Oh. So the child wanted 2 pennies to give to a poor man, but then thought, wait, I can get a biscuit. Oh man. Therefore, he had kept the pennies and had hidden them in the cracks of the floor. This is why he hadn't been able to rest in his grave and had come back every day at noon to look for the pennies. So the parents gave the money to a poor man, and after that, the little child was never seen again. Oh my gosh. Chills. Chills. Now, when we read that, does that sound like just a fairy tale, just la la la? No, that is a lesson. These are lessons. There's a reason the Grimm brothers traveled through Europe collecting these stories. They saw the value in them and they weren't thinking of entertainment value. They understood we must preserve this. We must preserve our society. We must preserve what we know to be true. This story and all of these stories, they always just know that there's a creator. They just know it. This whole idea of atheism and like this is a brand new thing. It's a 20th century type of a thing. I am sure you're going to be like, no, there were no. I'm sure there were offshoots of people who wanted to deny God. But people have just been like, creation requires a creator. This is just pop out of nowhere, right? It was just known, especially known, in the West, in Christendom. That's what makes us Christendom. It's what makes the West the West. It really is. It's not separation of church and state, communism style. That's what the Bolsheviks did when they moved in. I talked about that on yesterday's video. But the stolen pennies, the little boy stole the pennies. And the story is that he couldn't rest because he had done that. And now I don't believe that our good works get us into heaven. I don't think that any of us are good enough or good at all, really. We're all a bunch of ragamuffins that depend on the grace of God. We depend on that sacrifice that was made on the cross. But to teach your children this story about the importance of doing what's right and how it will stay with you when you don't. It will eat you up forever if you don't. Does that mean any of us can be perfect? No. But if we grew up hearing stories like this, we'd certainly all be much better. We would all benefit from each other thinking this way. Wow, fantastic. Fantastic. That's why we don't skip these little ones. The next small one is the hand with the knife. Oh boy. Okay, ready? Here we go. There once was a little girl who had 3 brothers, and the boys meant the world to her mother. Uh-oh. Yet the little girl was always neglected. Treated badly, and forced to go out early in the morning every day to dig up peat from the dry ground on the heath, which they used for making fires and cooking. To top it all off, she was given an old blunt shovel to perform this nasty work. Now I will tell you, just want to stop right here and say it is a thing. That's why women have this whole I'm a boy mom thing. They love that their sons, their little boys, they will all say their little boys are easier and their little boys are more affectionate. Mothers will fight more with their little girls. They will compete more with their little girls. So I find that interesting as we're digging through with our literary archaeology here. I'm seeing like an issue that we have in this day and age with the way women are treating their daughters differently than their sons. And I'm not even saying that it's a great thing for their sons, but I'm just saying, like, there's a parallel here so far. But the little girl had an admirer who was an elf and lived in a hill near her mother's house. Whenever she went by the hill, he would stretch out his hand from the rocky slope and offer her a knife that had miraculous power and could cut through anything. She used this knife to cut out the peat and would finish her work quickly. Then she would return home happily with the necessary load. And when she walked by the rocky slope, she would knock twice, and the hand would reach out and take back the knife. Okay, so far so good. When the mother noticed how swiftly and easily she came back home with the peat, she told the girl's brothers that there must be someone helping her. Otherwise, it would be impossible for her to complete the work so fast. So the brothers crept after her and watched her receive the magic knife. They overtook her and forced her to give it to them. Then they returned to the rocky slope, knocked the way she had always done, and when the good elf stretched out his hand, they cut it off with his very own knife. The bloody arm drew back, and since the elf believed that his beloved had betrayed him, he was never seen after that. Well, interesting that the brothers did the bidding of the mother to go and spy, and that the brothers decided to harm the elf. They, I guess, wanted the little girl to also work hard. But is this also that when the mother favors the boys in such a way, even if they don't have a daughter to favor the boys over, they turn them into little simps? She was being cruel to the daughter. We don't know why, it doesn't say. So clearly that's not the point. The point is she was being cruel to the daughter. And then she used the sons to assist her. She turned the sons into her little simps. Have you guys ever seen, look, every time I see these simps, I'm using the word oops. Anyway, whenever you see these simps like trying to enable women, I think to myself, did you have a mother that turned you into this, that you feel like you've got to defend all women and believe all women because you think your mother is beyond reproach? I think that's where it starts. I think that's how simps are created in men. I think that's how they're created. I think because their mother, they put their mother on this pedestal, and therefore all women are on that pedestal. They can see no fault in her. When they had a single mom, they're like, oh, she had a struggle, she had this, she had that, and my father was such a bad guy. They don't know their father. All they know is what their mother told them about the father. And they just basically do their mother's bidding. That's what they learn as they grew up. And as they get older, they seem to do all of women's bidding. It doesn't help us because all it does is it helps feminists, and that's not good for women generally. We're not happy. None of us are happy. We're not having babies. It's not good for us. But anyway, I think that creates simps. And I think that's what these little boys turned into, to the point where they just cut off an elf who was being helpful. The elf was being helpful. They couldn't see that the mother was being cruel, that the mother was anything. They're like, yes, mom, yes, mom, yes, mom. These mothers turn their little boys into simps, and they grow up and they just continue. They continue just excusing women for everything they do. That's what they do. Don't want to do that. If I was reading this to little children, I would say, now, do you think that that was right for the sons to do this? And I would hope that my children would say, no, the sons should have helped the little girl. The sons should have been the ones helping her get the peat. The villain in the story, the mother again. And she's not even a stepmother. It's just the mother. She's the villain. Weird. The only time we've seen a father be a villain is when he was basically a simp and just went along with things, like in Hansel and Gretel. You know, just like, okay, new wife, I guess we'll just send our children into the forest to starve. But they're never like actively evil. They just passively follow the woman, which probably started with their own mothers. And before you start saying, oh, this sounds Freudian, no, I'm sorry. I don't think Freud was a good guy. He was related to the father of propaganda, Edward Bernays. They were like uncle, nephew. No. You can understand the behavior of humans because you're a human and you observe other humans and you see patterns. You don't need Freud or any of those other people to tell you what humans do or why they do it. You can watch. Anyway. Wow. Those two were really good. Okay, now we've got the main course here. It is called The 12 Brothers. It sounds a little familiar, but I'm like, gosh, we've read some from my other book that was from the 20th century, which is way too modern. We need the originals. So I'm sure that you guys will let me know. I know Rojas will be like, I think we read this one, but it's okay. The 12 Brothers. By the way, if you haven't already, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this show with anyone you think would enjoy it or benefit from it. I like for these fairy tales to, get seen. I never thought we'd be doing this. It just kind of happened by accident, and it's just so exciting what you can dig up. But anyway, I ask you to like the video because my little dog Lola is giving me the evil eye because she wants her supper, but it's not time for that yet. Okay, the 12 Brothers. Once upon a time, there was a king who had 12 children, all boys. Moreover, he didn't want to have a daughter and said to his wife, if you give birth to our 13th child and it's a girl, I shall have the 12 boys ended. However, if it's a boy, then they'll all remain alive and stay together. This was back in the times when people believed that it was the woman's body that decided whether it was male or female. And as far as science has told us, that's not the case. But then again, I don't know what I believe with what they tell us about science. It doesn't matter. All right. So, okay. No stress. The queen thought of talking him out of this, but the king refused to hear anything more about this topic. If everything turns out like I said, they must outlive. I'd rather chop off their heads myself than let a girl be among them. Wow. Okay, I had just said that there aren't male villains. Just kidding. Okay. Wow. The queen was sad about this because she loved her sons with all her heart and didn't know how she could save them. Finally, she went she went to the youngest, who was her favorite, and revealed to him what the king had decided. "Dearest child," she said, "go into the forest with your 11 brothers. Stay there and don't come home. One of you should keep watch on a tree and look over here toward the tower. If I give birth to a little son, I'll raise a white flag on top of the tower. However, if it's a little daughter, I'll raise a red flag. If you all see that it's red, then save yourselves. Flee into the wide world, and may our dear Lord protect you. I'll get up every night and pray that you won't freeze in the winter and are able to warm yourselves by a fire, and that when it's hot in the summer, you can rest in a cool forest and sleep." After she gave her blessing to her sons, they went out into the forest, where they frequently looked toward the tower. One of them had to sit on top of a high tree and constantly keep watch. Soon, a flag was hoisted, but it wasn't a white one. It was a blood-red flag that foreshadowed their doom. As soon as the brothers caught sight of it, they all became angry and cried out, "Why should we lose our lives because of a girl?" Good question. Then they all swore to remain in the middle of the forest and to keep on their guard, and if a maiden were to appear, they would end her without mercy. Uh-oh. It's not her fault. It's the king's fault. Did the mom tell them that? I don't know. Wow. So they did not go out into the wide world. They're like, "Nope, we're staying here. We're standing our ground. We're not giving up our rightful kingdom, our rightful place because of this chick." Okay. And once again, I lost my spot. Oh, here we go. Okay. Then they all swore to remain in the middle of the forest and to keep on their guard, and if a maid, without mercy. Soon after this, they searched for a cave where the forest was the darkest, and that's where they began to live. Every morning, 11 of the brothers went off to hunt. One of them had to remain home, cook, and keep house. Whenever they encountered a maiden, she was treated without mercy and lost her life. This is how they lived for many years. In the meantime, their little sister grew up and was the only child left at home. One day, there was a large amount of washing to do, and among the clothes were 12 shirts for boys. "Whose shirts are these?" the princess asked the washerwoman. "They're much too small for my father." It was then that the washerwoman told her that she had once had 12 brothers, but they had mysteriously gone away. Nobody knew where, because the king had wanted to have them ended, and the 12 shirts belonged to her 12 brothers. The little sister was astonished that she had never heard of her 12 brothers, and during the afternoon, as the children, lost my spot there. Don't skip a line. And during the afternoon, as the clothes were drying and she was sitting in the meadow, she recalled the words of the washerwoman. After giving considerable thought to what she had heard, she stood up, took the 12 shirts, and went into the forest where the brothers were living. Oh no. Lola, it's not time yet, but thank you. Please like the video. I need a Lola cam because you guys, she's super cute when she's demanding. So she's taken the shirts and she's gone into the forest. Oh, good gracious. The little sister made her way straight to the cave that served as her brother's dwelling. 11 of them were out hunting, and only one of them, who had to cook, was at home. When he caught sight of the maiden, he composed himself and drew his sword. "Kneel down. Your red blood will flow this very second." But the maiden pleaded, "Dear sir, let me live. I'll stay with you and serve you honestly. I'll cook and keep your house." She spoke these words to the youngest brother, and he took pity on her because of her beauty and spared her life. Later, when his 11 brothers returned home and were astonished to find a maiden alive in their cave, "How dare you talk to a woman?" he said to them, "Dear brothers, this girl came to our cave, and when I wanted to cut her to pieces, she pleaded for her life so much and said that she would serve as faithfully and keep house that I spared her life." The others thought that this would be a great benefit to them, because now all 12 of them could go hunting. And they were satisfied with this arrangement. Then the maiden showed them the 12 shirts and told them that she was their sister. Indeed, they were all very happy about this and were glad they hadn't ended her. And of course, I'm changing the word that begins with a K to ended, just because I want YouTube to suggest the fairy tale to people. And if it thinks I'm saying bad things, it won't. Now the little sister took over the household chores. And when the brothers went out hunting, she gathered wood and herbs, kept the fire going, made up the beds nice and white and clean, and did everything with zeal and without getting tired. Do you know, let me just say something. That was amazing. That sentence was amazing. Where she lived in the palace as the princess, there was a washerwoman. This princess wasn't doing any of these chores, any of these things. She didn't have these duties and responsibilities where she was living in the palace. She's choosing it. And she's saying she did this all day for 12 dudes who go out hunting, get dirty, whatever. And she's taking care of them, and without getting tired. Because when it's a labor of love and you're caring for people you love, that is reciprocal. It feeds your soul. When you're not capable of loving, you look at it like it's a chore and you resent it. This little girl is good. One day, when she was finished with all the work, she took a walk in the woods and came to a place where there were 12 large, beautiful white lilies. Since they pleased her so much, she plucked all 12 of them. No sooner did she do this than an old woman stood before her. Uh-oh. "Oh, my daughter," she said, "why didn't you let the 12 budding flowers just stand there? They're your 12 brothers. Now they've been changed into ravens and are lost forever." What? What? So she sees these lilies and she plucks them because they're beautiful. And this old woman's like, "Oh, my daughter, those are your 12. The budding flowers just stand there. They're your 12 brothers. Now they've been changed into ravens and are lost forever. But they live in a cave." Okay, keep reading. The little sister began to weep and said, "Isn't there any way that I can save them?" "No, there isn't any way in the world, except one that's so difficult you won't be able to rescue them. You must spend the next 12 years without speaking. If you say one single word, even if there's only an hour left, everything will be in vain, and your brothers will die that very moment." Well, the little sister responded by climbing a tall tree in the forest where she took a place. She wanted to sit there 12 years without saying a word to free her brothers. But it so happened that a king was out riding. This is a wild fairy tale. We are all over the place. Okay, so she's up in the tree. She wants to stay there. But it so happened that a king was out riding and hunting in the forest. And as he rode by the tree, his dog stood still and barked. So the king stopped, looked up, and was very amazed by the princess's beauty. He called to her and asked her whether she wanted to become his wife. However, she remained silent and only nodded a bit with her head. So the king himself dismounted, helped her down from the tree, and lifted her up before him onto his horse. This is the at least second fairy tale where there's a woman and she can't speak. And the man's like, hey, you're a good wife. Because honestly, a lot of times we do need to shut up. We do all talk too much. And you can communicate so much without speaking. You show, right? Show, don't tell. Okay, so he lifted her up onto his horse. Then he brought her home to his castle. Oh, this fly is still in here. Goodness gracious. Then he brought her home to his castle. Meanwhile, the princess did not utter one word, and the king thought that she was mute. They would have lived happily with one another if it hadn't been for the king's mother, who began to slander the young queen in front of her son. Oh my God, what is going on with these women? They're the bad guys. Slandering the daughter, of course, the mother-in-law. The mother-in-law doesn't want the son to be with this woman. She's a common beggar that you've dug up from the nowhere, and she's doing the most disgraceful things behind your back. Since the young queen couldn't defend herself, the king was led astray and finally believed what his mother said. So he sentenced his wife to death, and an enormous fire was built in the courtyard where she was to be burned to death. Simp, why are you believing your mother? Just rewind to the story we just read before this. Soon, the queen was standing in the flames that grazed the fringes of her dress. 1 minute was left. Oh, ooh, it's getting so good. 1 minute was left before the 12 years of her silence would be completed. There was a noise in the air, and 12 ravens swooped down into the courtyard. As soon as they touched the ground, they became 12 handsome princes who instantly put out the flames and led their sister to safety. Then she spoke once again and told the king how everything had happened and how she had to save her 12 brothers. Indeed, they were all pleased that everything turned out so well. My gosh. Now they had to decide what they should do. Okay, I'm sorry. Too excited. Calm down. It's a good story. Now they had to decide what they should with the evil mother-in-law. Well, oh my God. Well, they stuck her into a barrel full of boiling oil and poisonous snakes, and she died a ghastly death. And that's the end of that one. Well, we took a wild ride there. I don't even know where to begin. That was a wild ride. So we had this king that doesn't want a girl. And if he has a girl, he's going to end the sons. So they all go to a forest. There's a bit of a skip. Like, I didn't skip anything, but it sort of jumps to where she picks these flowers. And maybe it's that, let them bloom. Don't just pick them. This old woman shows up. Sounds like a witch to me. And is like, oh, well, now your brothers are ravens. But how did they become flowers in the first place? That's where it skipped. But sometimes these fairy tales are just like, it's fine. We just have to tell the story. So an animal's going to do this, or this is going to happen. It's just to tell the story, just to get the lesson in there. Wow. This little girl was good. This is a good little girl. And even the brothers could see it. I don't know what the other maidens did, but they didn't beg for their lives. They didn't offer anything clearly, because she did. And they could see the difference. They could see she was a different sort of maiden. And maybe the king was saying, look, you know what? There's a lot of girls that are just no good, and I don't want to have one of them. This is sort of like, I feel like there's some red pill stuff. King was like, nope, no women, no girls, no daughters. They're just trouble. And the boys were like, yep, we see one. They're all the same. AWOL. And this one comes in and is like, no, I will serve you. I will serve you, and here are your shirts. And she did. And then I guess this witch put some kind of curse on them, makes them flowers, and then they turned to ravens. What would have happened when the flowers died? I don't know. She stayed silent for 12 years. Good things happen when women are silent. Good things happen when women serve selflessly. Good things happen. It brings the best out of men when women serve and when women know to hold their tongues. Good things happen. Better things happen, I should say. It doesn't prevent the bad stuff. Bad stuff is going to happen. Sometimes you're just going to get turned into a raven, I suppose, because evil exists in the world. But when women are humble and serve and do it out of love and not out of resentment or anything like that, and know to hold their tongues and have, discipline like that, brings out the best in men. Rescues them from the cave they've been relegated to. If women would start holding their tongues, start being humble, not being prideful, and started serving their fellow man, started serving their families, then men wouldn't have to go to their caves. They wouldn't have to go their own way. What can I say? That's what I see. You want to say these are old fairy tales? There is nothing new under the sun. Because of a woman, these men had to flee and stay living deep in the forest. They had to go their own way. And then it took a woman to save it, because it just does. Like now, I know it's hard for a lot of guys when there's a prominent red pill, MGTOW guy type creator, and he dares to speak to a woman. But the thing is that there are MRA associations that have been going for as long as I've been alive. They've been going for over 40 years. And where's the progress? What has happened good for men over the last 40 years? I would say nothing. There's been nothing good. We don't value men more. We haven't stopped like little boy mutilation. We haven't the circumcision. We haven't fixed the court system. It's all gotten worse for men. They're outwardly hated. Outwardly. My point is that it's going to take women to fix it, because nobody listens to men. And we women are the ones that have been the tools from the state to make your lives miserable. We've been propagandized to vote in all kinds of things that are bad for you. And the only way it ever gets turned around, which I don't even think the whole thing can be turned around, but the only way we can turn around some women from their evil ways, the only way we can extend an arm to men and say, I'm sorry, is when women wake up. And some of them are going to be grifters. Some of them are going to be, in it for themselves or for the fame or whatever. But we've got to get the message out. The thing is that it's very hard to say to a woman, oh, you hate women. But when you guys try to speak up, they'll just destroy you. Remember when we all listened to Jordan Peterson before he was a Daily Wire guy? And we were like, oh, God, this guy. And before we knew what his daughter was all about, we really believed a little bit more in him. Remember how they maligned him and they made him like an evil cartoon villain? Because he talked about hierarchies. And lobsters have hierarchies, and so therefore hierarchies are ancient and in everything we see, and therefore not malevolent, not inherently malevolent. Look what they did with him. My point is that dude is as benign as they come. He's a liberal, for heaven's sakes. He's a Canadian liberal. He's not this conservative guy. That's not him at all. He's like, this is what I know from psychology, and they will destroy you if you dare to speak up. So the women have to do it in whatever way they can. Happy Wife School is a great example. Coming forward with the truth. Is it all the truth? No, but it's her angle, and it speaks to, hey, these women are not behaving the way they should. 100%, she is legit. The Transformed Wife, I don't think she has a YouTube channel, but she's 100% legit. She comes from a little bit more of a Christian, the kind of churchy angle, because I'm not big on the church. I think it's highly feminized and feminist. And, I think in order to be a man to go to church, they want you to be a good beta. But she has a good platform. And Pearl, whatever her ambitions are, whatever her motives were, thank God she got the word out. She did break out. I started my channel before her, but her ambition, whatever it came from, got the word out more. And that's positive. Anyway, yeah, fantastic. I can't wait to be in the chat with you guys tonight and hear what you think about these stories. Anyway, please protect your peace. Please feed your souls on this Sunday. Remember, you have a creator. You're made in his image. In the end, we win because Christ is King. I love you, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.